Hey, body nerds! Today we are talking to Dr. Sarah Court, a physical therapist, and she'll be answering all of your questions about physical therapy, when to ask or go to physical therapy, what to ask them, all of those things. So I'm just going to wait for her to make that request once you hop on. And if you are watching this and you have questions for a physical therapist, feel free to drop those down in the comments and we will answer them. Hey, you guys. All right, there she
Hello.
is. How's it going?
Good. How you doing?
Welcome to this internet of vortexes.
Is my volume okay? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're
Great.
totally good.
Very good.
Well, first of all, thanks for being here. Thanks
Yeah.
for coming and chatting and sharing your brilliance with us. But let's start where I think all body nerds need to start, which is, what do you like to get nerdy about?
I mean, at the moment, it's really just carbs. I've been doing a deep dive into a variety of carbohydrates. There are different methods of, preparation, consumption. That's been my focus the past couple months.
Is butter a carb?
Butter's a fat, but that's a subset. That's like the Reddit subset of like carbs plus fats.
Right.
So that's a if you're going to do some sort of deep dive, that's a good one. No, really, what I've been like very lately. I mean, and it's all sort of related to how do I just like manage myself in relation to the world at the moment. Mm-hmm. And what I've found to sort of be most effective is finding ways that I sort of think of it of like letting the steam out of the pot a little bit, because I'm not yet ready to take the whole lid off of the pot, but it's like too much to keep it in, if that makes sense. So little things that let me do that, like going on a walk in my neighborhood and listening to music, or like, dancing around or cooking, or like just a lot of very kind of like intimate, tactile, personal things are the kind of stuff that's really making me feel like I'm still a human being at the moment. So that's really kind of where I am. There's not a lot of like, I'm going to go study research on this topic, because I don't have room, at the moment.
No, for sure. I'm just like nerding out on being more human, because it's really hard right now. I feel you on that one.
Yeah.
I feel you. Well, and I think that also goes to show that, like we all are human. Even your physical therapist, has emotions and feelings too. Like, even just as a kid, if I knew that my teachers were like real people that had like lives and friends, it would have been a totally different experience.
Totally, and also, I mean, for those of us, like I'm working in a clinic right now, and lots of PTs are, and so, just sort of keep that in mind for your local physical therapist who's dealing with a lot of things on top of trying to help you.
Yeah.
So,
you guys definitely have a lot on your plate right now, for sure. So I put out a question to my audience about, I said, I'm sitting down with brilliant physical therapists, and like any questions you have, like ask away. And one of the biggest ones that came through was like, how do I know, when I should reach out to a physical therapist versus chiropractor versus massage? So it's sort of like, that's a big question, but let's start there.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent question. There's a few different ways to kind of think about it. But for me, I think the easiest way is to, if you think about like ways that I'm going to have, any sort of intervention with my body to try to make it feel better. If that's a category of what we're trying to do, you can kind of separate that into passive interventions and active interventions, right? So a passive one is something like a massage. Something's happening to you. You're not yourself doing anything. So a massage, like an adjustment that you might get from a chiropractor, that's also passive. The difference in a big way is that some physical therapy is very much sort of manual therapy, massage based, but most PT also includes an active component, which is you're reteaching your body, or maybe for the first time teaching your body how to move well and how to stop, whatever sort of overcompensation or incorrect pattern of movement has created this injury or repetitive overuse or whatever it is in the first place. So you're actually making a course correction for your body so that doesn't happen again. Mm-hmm. Because I think what happens sometimes when we rely too heavily, and believe me, I love a massage as much as the next person, but I don't learn anything from it. It doesn't teach me anything about how to move. So those tend to take care of kind of the immediate, the pain, the irritation, what's happening in the moment. But then if you want to sort of go long picture or whatever, you have to actually start to change the way that your body is moving. Otherwise, you're just going to do the same thing to yourself, essentially, as soon as you step off of the table and start walking. So that's sort of the biggest difference with PT, is that it does contain that element of, we teach movement, we do corrective exercises, we do therapeutic exercises, and that to me is the sort of the biggest difference. So the way that I personally kind of, use all of those categories, when my body's just generally achy, that's when I'm like, I'm just going to go get a massage. Or if my nervous system is achy, for want of a better, if I'm just feeling generally like I need this, then that's when I go do like massage specifically. It sort of depends on what you're used to feeling in your body. I have a rib that tends to like move around a little too much. So when that's happening, I go to my chiropractor and he puts it back in. When I had surgery, or anytime I've had like a major injury where there's a rehab period after it, that's when physical therapy comes in, because it's kind of a spring clean or an overhaul for the way that you are just sort of being in your body and using your body. So hopefully that makes sense as a way to kind of differentiate.
Yeah, no, it totally does. And for those of you who are with us here live, if you have any questions about physical therapy you want to ask, feel free to drop those in the comments below. But I think that makes a lot of sense, because it's, based on what your body needs and what you're feeling. And, similarly for me, I go to the chiropractor when there's something that I can't resolve, right? I go to massage when I'm like, yeah, I need a little bit of that relaxation. I need to unwind. I need just somebody else to take care of me for a little bit rather than me having to do it for myself. And then usually for me, the physical therapist, which is you, is because all of those other things haven't helped.
Right.
But what
or helped temporarily.
Yeah. Where they haven't actually like resolved the thing.
Yeah.
Right. Last I worked with you was because I had a hip thing going on. It's like I had done everything I could do. My chiropractor had done everything they could do. So it's like, all right, let's, it's now a 3-alarm fire. So like, let's call in the water truck with the ladder, all of that kind of stuff. But I think sometimes people almost like accept a certain level of pain, like, oh, I just have to put up with this because like I'm not 18 anymore, I'm not 30 anymore, like whatever.
Right. Yeah.
So is there a moment where it's like it's too soon or like too late for physical therapy?
It's never too late. And to your point, I see people all the time who come in and they'll be like, yeah, I've had low back pain my whole life. I've had neck pain since, ever since I was in a car accident 20 years ago, and I just was told like, this is how it's going to be. This is the best that I can get it, that kind of stuff. And I've just seen categorically over and over again, people get better, so it's definitely never too late. The only time it might be too soon, honestly, your PT wouldn't see you, because it's like, well, I broke my leg yesterday. They're like, well, it's too soon. Like, you're not coming in today. But yeah, it's, I think the way that you approach it makes a lot of sense, where it's like, let me use all the tools that I know. And if they're not doing enough, or they've done like some of it, but not all of it, or if it's only like, I roll on a ball and it feels better, but by the afternoon it feels worse again, or something like that, then it's like, okay, there's something more complicated going on here that we have to get to the root of. Sometimes people describe it like, if there's a criminal and a victim, let's say your neck pain is the victim, somewhere else in your body is the like, quote unquote criminal that's doing something, where your neck is now, either working too hard or working incorrectly, and it's getting overloaded, and that's where the pain is. And so if I go in and massage my neck, sure, that feels better, but it hasn't actually rooted out the cause of what's going on, And so that's a lot of what PT can do as well, is actually find that kind of like, well, let's take a step back and look at the whole body and see like, well, why might it be that the way you're walking is making your neck hurt? And, it's so, the number, it just makes me laugh, because people are like, why? I had no idea that would be connected. And I'm like, well, I get it. Of course not, because the way that we talk about the body is we separate it off into pieces. And we treat the body as if, they're not connected to each other, but they are,
Mm-hmm.
and especially through movement, so many things are involved in every movement that you do. And so to really kind of drill down and become like a body detective and figure out, okay, oh, it's this crazy thing from my hip that it means my shoulder isn't able to take the weight properly when I'm, I don't know, doing an overhead press or whatever it might be, So there's sort of more layers to it a lot of the time. And that's what PT is good for rooting out. But yeah, as far as going too early, I mean, the other thing that I do see, I will say this, is that I love people so much. Somebody will come in and they'll be like, okay, so I was running on Sunday and then my hip really hurt. So then the next day I only ran for half an hour and then it still hurt. And then so the next day I went on the bike for an hour and then it still hurt. And I'm just always like, where was the day you just gave it a break?
Right.
So I think sometimes the piece that sometimes I think we miss, because we're kind of conditioned to think like, there's always something I should be doing to make this better. I should be participating actively, even if it's, foam rolling or rolling on a ball or a stretch or whatever. But sometimes what that body part really wants is just for you to leave it alone for 24 hours and give it a chance to take care of itself. And then you jump in and you do all of your things. So sometimes I see that where people maybe have sort of a little bit forgotten about the, give it a rest period. So that would be the too soon.
Yeah.
But definitely never too late. Never too late.
I appreciate you saying that, because the way I go about it is it takes me months to finally get to the physical therapist, because I'm like, well, maybe this will work, maybe that will work, maybe this will work, maybe that will work. And then when I have a conversation, it's like, well, what'd you do? Well, then I waited like a year and then I came in. So it's great to know that, it's never too late. That also, I think sometimes what people forget is that your body can change. That there are, that things are always changeable, and there's always some sort of improvement that can happen, that it's not, obviously there are some things where it's like, well, this is just the way it is.
Yeah.
But there's always, even if it's 1% better, there's always improvement that can be made.
Absolutely. I see people as well who come in, and there's certain things obviously that I can't do anything about. To change it would require surgery. But, let's say I have a patient who's essentially just too old to have surgery, but she has terrible knee osteoarthritis. Her knee hurts. So what we work on are ways to kind of strengthen around her knee, and we do some massage to make it feel better. So we're able to make her life, the quality of her life, better in the absence of being able to do anything about something that required surgery. But even separately from that, there's always ways to make things feel better. There really is. Yeah.
What do you wish more people knew before coming to see you?
Oh, what an interesting question. About what physical therapy is, or
just in general, something that, one little nugget that if they understood would make your job in helping them with their body that much easier.
There's probably a few things. That I think the most practical answer is understanding that, let's say you come and see me and you see me once or twice a week. The rest of your time, what you're doing in that time matters just as much as what we do in our hour. And so, people either like the homework that we give them to do, or they hate it generally. I was always give me as much, I'll do all of the homework. Give me that guy's homework as well, whatever you want me to do. But for other people, and sometimes it's not even a question of that. Sometimes it's just a question of I am unbelievably busy and I could not find, I've got children, I've got Zoom school, I've got a job, sometimes it's just hard to find the time to do it. But I think for people to understand that it's, it's not when my car breaks down, I take it to the mechanic and I'm like, you do it, because I have no clue how to fix this. But when it's your body, it's a team effort, right? I'm going to help you, but you also have to help you. And the way you help yourself is, do the exercises or think about your posture or whatever you're working on with the PT, so that together you're making you better. Those are the people, when I work with those patients, they get better much quicker generally, because there's just there's a buy-in, as opposed to an idea of I'm going to sort of lie here for an hour and you're going to make me better, and then I get up and do whatever I want, and then I'll be back next week. So if you if you want to get better, you have to understand there's going to be stuff that you need to be doing as well. Your PT is not going to be doing everything for you.
Yeah. Well, as much as you are like Wonder Woman, like you're not Wonder Woman,
No.
and
Near, I mean, that would be amazing.
right?
I would really love, I would love an invisible plane, but apart from that, if I can't have an invisible plane, I'll just have patients that like want to take part in their care.
Yeah, but exactly like you're saying too, like that collaboration for
Yeah.
sure. Victoria is saying, that's interesting. When I do box jumps at the gym, I feel it in the base of my skull, but only on the left side, that what we're doing and how we're moving, to your point earlier as well, like you aren't just a bicep or just
Right.
an ankle, that there is a fully interconnected, holistic, like you to physical therapy or work within the medical system, and they only see that one little part that like has pain. So
Yeah.
from your experience, like why does that happen? Can you please solve medical industry for me in one answer, but also like what can we do to find a practitioner like you who is going to look at the whole picture?
That's a sort of big-ish question, but I will do my best. So part of the difficulty in the way that physical therapy is, set up in this country is that you're either sort of like within the insurance model or you're not. And so if you're within the insurance model, meaning like you come in and your health insurance pays for your physical therapy, it's very difficult to keep a clinic open. Like if we're just talking about private practice. And so there has to be a certain amount of volume where in order to, to keep the practice running, it becomes unfortunately kind of business-based rather than care-based. And what that ends up meaning is that you get maybe 20 minutes with your PT. And the other thing is, and so they're sort of like, they're going to have to do whatever they know to do in that moment. There's not enough time, really. There's not a lot of room for, well, let's see if this might be part of it, or why don't we try this kind of thing. There's not room for the experimentation. The other thing is, if your prescription says neck pain and I start working on your foot, your insurance companies be like, we're not going to pay for the foot. So that's
Right.
part of it as well. Like you have to, it's very kind of a lot of this business where you're just kind of like ducking and weaving and trying to figure out, well, like, let me get to the root of what this is, but I also need to do something for this person's neck because otherwise their insurance is not going to pay for it. So it's that kind of stuff where it's like it actually has nothing at all to do with getting good care. How good of a PT your PT probably is, but they're constrained in a lot of ways. The
Right.
other option is to do, a cash-based practice, which is you pay for it out of pocket and then your insurance, whatever they will reimburse, happens afterwards. What that permits, though, is you get, like where I get to do PT, you get an hour with me, and we can solve a lot more. And in a lot of ways, I think, in particular, if it's not a complicated thing, you actually get better faster, and it might actually end up costing you less because you don't have to go for 24 visits of 20 minutes, that each time you're paying your $40, whatever. It's such a huge bummer that the entire thing of it is based on like, well, who's going to pay for what? It's kind of this dance. But that's the sort of medical model part of it. And you had a second part of your question, and I don't remember what it is.
How to find, I think this was it, but also this is what I'm wondering now. Like how to tell that the physical therapist you have selected, because so let me give backstory. When I was in college, like my first like big injury that led me to physical therapy, I was working with the physical therapist who I didn't feel was like seeing me as a person. I was just like, oh, you have back pain, then do these things. I'm like, yeah, but like I'm special, I'm unique, and I didn't know like what to say or how to communicate that, or even from the beginning, like how to choose to work with somebody who would see me as a whole person. So, what would be a good way for someone stepping into physical therapy for maybe the first or the 50th time of having that conversation to kind of like figure out more about their physical therapist and like advocate for themselves better?
Absolutely. I think word of mouth is actually a really good way to do it because odds are somebody who's had physical therapy and they can tell you like, oh yeah, I love my person, they were great, go to them, or like I didn't have such a good experience, definitely don't go here. So that ends up being a big part of it. If you are seeing a physical therapist already and you're like, you know what, because it happens sometimes, we're like, I don't feel like they're really seeing me. And again, that goes back to this thing of like, well, if the person's only got, a short amount of time to work with you, they may not be able to kind of dig down into a lot of the detail of what's going on. They're a bit limited by that. But even if that's not the case, what I think a good PT should always be able to do is explain to you in a way that you understand. So without like jargon, but also without kind of like glossing over it, what's going on and what they're going to do about it, and why the things they're doing or what they're asking you to do at home is going to help, how it's going to help. And it's completely within your right always, multiple times with the same PT, to be like, okay, can you explain to me, what this is? How is this helping me? What is this going to do for my body? And like that. And, any good PT would be able to answer. And if the other thing that I think that people maybe they don't feel comfortable doing it necessarily, or maybe they may not even realize that they can, but you are well within your right to say, I'm not getting along with this. I feel like she's not hearing me. We're not, it's just not working. Is there another therapist in the practice that I can see? Mm-hmm. Because sometimes it just ends up being personality. Right. That can really, because it does end up being I have relationships with my patients. I see them and we're working on helping them get better at whatever the thing is. So, if you guys just don't gel, then that makes it harder. And you can absolutely be like, I just feel like it's not working. Is there another physical therapist in the practice that I can see instead? That's happened to me in both directions. I've had people leave and I've had other people come. And again, a good PT will not take it personally. You can't, it's just how it is. So that's one thing. And then if you really just aren't having a good experience at that particular clinic, and if you need to use your insurance, if that's the way that you can afford for this to happen, then you go sort of look on your insurance website or have them give you information on other practices nearby. Or if you came from a doctor, usually they'll give you a list of places. Right. And so you can maybe look up the other places. Like we all have like Yelp reviews now, which is pretty funny, but you can go and see like, what are people saying about this practice? And especially you can go and see it and you'll see, in some places are like, they weren't listening to me. I wasn't being heard. Like you'll see the same kind of thing over and over, and that'll give you a lot of information about this particular place and how they work, and if that seems like it's going to work for you. Mm-hmm. So that's what I would recommend.
Yeah, awesome. What would you say is, I'm just checking my notes to make sure we ask all the questions. Like how many sessions, I know you said like it depends on if you do your homework, but like 6 sessions is usually like the standard with, insurance companies. But like in your experience with someone who's doing their homework, I know it depends, but like in general, what could one person expect?
It depends because, a large part of it depends on like what's going on. What's right. The severity of what's happening. How many other things are going on with this person at the same time? What are the biopsychosocial components of it? So it's really hard to say like, oh, after 3 sessions with me, you're going to be all better. And honestly, if I had somebody who said that to me, I'd be like, goodbye, because I don't believe that. It's definitely. It's much easier to answer the question in terms of like, you should be able to see a progression of getting better. And the speed of that progression is going to depend on, how severe, the person that I worked with last year who, majorly broke their arm, it took a much longer time than the person who had an ankle sprain, so that's a big part of it. But you should be seeing sort of an upward trajectory, either a fast one or a slow one, as you're going along. So I think that's more of an indicator, is like, if you've had, 6 sessions and nothing has changed, then either that's where you're like, okay, hang on, maybe this PT is not doing enough, or maybe sometimes, the other thing is sometimes I see people and I'm like, I actually need to send you to somebody else first. Like you need a pelvic floor specialist first. and then come back here and we can do our work, right? So that's part of the discernment for the PT as well, is to be able to tell, like, is what I'm going to do for this person actually going to help them at this moment in time, or does something else need to happen first, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I would say it's more about like, less about giving a specific number and more about like, you should be seeing improvement. And if you're not, that's when you go, okay, wait a minute.
Yeah, no, that's super helpful, because sometimes too, I feel like people go, well, I went one session and like it didn't work. And it's like, but it takes time,
Right.
you know, it took a long time to get to the point where you're at right now. And it will take just as long, if not longer, to undo it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you know, if you come and you feel like, if I had back pain for 15 years, probably one session is not going to clear it up permanently, but it should at least start you on your way, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it'll take time. What are some things that people, like, in your opinion, should be doing just as like daily maintenance as far as keeping themselves feeling good so that they don't need to come see you?
Yeah. I mean, you know, in a perfect world, none of us would have to work, and we could just sort of all day long be like moving and like, you know, going on a hike and then taking a, you know, nap and then getting a massage. Like, that's what my perfect world looks like. But unfortunately, that's not the world we live in. The biggest thing that I see is just sort of like in your day to day, try to minimize the amount of what I would call like stagnation, which is not automatically sitting, and, you know, but that's part of it, you know. So for people who have to sit for work, find different positions to sit in, change up the position your body is in, move around. If you can, go between sitting and standing. Same thing if you're standing. Some people are like, oh, I got a standing desk and I'm there for 8 hours. Well, you can still stand poorly, especially if you're doing it for 8 hours. Your body's going to get tired. So find that as well. And, you know, I think you talk about this a lot generally as well, is, you know, if you're going to start a new habit, it's basically impossible if you make it too hard for yourself, right? So, and then you're like, oh, I'm going to do this every day. And then when you don't do it every day, you're like, oh, I'm terrible and I shouldn't have ever tried. But I really do believe in just a little changes, you know. So whether it's you're like, okay, I'm going to set an alarm and every 45 minutes I'm going to get up and stretch, something like that, you know. So finding ways that work for you, work in your life, your lifestyle, the demands that you have, so that you can succeed. And really recognizing, like, it doesn't, like, there's tons of research on this. It could be once a week that you went to a yoga class, right? And that can really have big changes in the way your body feels. We see so much pressure of like, oh, no, you got to start and it's got to be like every day at least, or 3 times a week minimum. And if you don't
like
do that, you might as well not. Yeah, you know, but that's not true at all. That's not true at all. Like, really small changes make a huge difference. So finding incremental ways that you can get like movement nuggets into your life. And, you know, finding I always sort of joke that I have to trick myself, you know, as a PT, I should care, but I have to trick myself into doing most of the stuff that I do. So like, figure out how your brain works. Like, I've been trying to have my mom walk more, and she's doing it. And part of the way that I got her to do it is we stopped at a bakery on her walk, and we would get like a little treat. So then the walk became associated with, oh yes, but I get a scone or whatever.
Right.
And so I'm like, great. Like, if that's the way you have to think, whatever it takes to make it happen, you know? So kind of, so you're not trying to live on some sort of like, you know, idea that exists on the internet about, you know, how exactly what you're supposed to do and everybody's supposed to do the same. It's just not true. Just start to make little changes and you will see a difference.
Yeah. Lauren says too, just one thing. It's so so true. Just pick something. Go with it. But I think walking, especially if there are baked and buttery treats at the end of it, is like a fantastic way.
Yes.
So, you know, pick a bakery that's like a mile away and go to town.
Support local business.
It's great. It's a great plan. Awesome. Well, is there anything else, you know, you can bestow upon us with your wisdom today that we need to know to move better and feel better every day?
Oh my God. I think
more scones.
Just more baked good. Carbs obviously are playing a large role in my life at the moment. No, I just think, if you find yourself in a position of like, I don't know what to do. I feel overwhelmed by how much it seems like I should do. Should I go to a PT? I've been told that I can't do anything about, like, all of that. If you've got any sort of like stuff going on with you physically where you're just sort of living with it because you don't know what else to do, it's not a bad place to start to go to a PT. And the way that physical therapy works now, even within the insurance model, is you can go without a prescription for 12 visits or 45 days. So even if you're like, my foot kind of hurts, go to your PT or and they can even just kind of like, it might be that you go 1 or 2 visits and they helped you because they got you like just doing some stretches that you weren't doing, done, right? And that's so easy. Or they can at least point you in a direction of what would be most helpful for you, right? So kind of reaching out to your resources, and again, like, if you don't know somebody, talk to your friend. Like, everyone at some point has gone to PT for the most part. Lots of people have, so you probably know someone who has. So reach out to your resources. And the other thing that's nice is we've got so much, there's so much like content on the internet at the moment. So you find somebody that you like the way they teach, you like the content that they're creating, it works for you, works for your body, and just, start to integrate it, So it really is, I say this all the time to people, that like, bodies like to move. They don't like to be still. They're not made for, there's a reason why, a long airline flight, you feel not good afterwards. It's like, this is not what your body is designed for. So finding ways to really kind of like bring that into your life that is successful, that you like, because I'm not going to do something that I don't like. I don't run because I don't like running. So
short distances to the bakery. That's it.
That's exactly. Just fast walking. Like, they're just walking so fast that you might run, but not actually running. But yeah, like, if you're finding yourself in a position where you're like, I don't know where to start, or, just finding like sort of baby steps into it, because usually we can make things better, even if you've been told that you can't. And I've seen that. I mean, I'm not trying to promise some sort of like snake oil or miracle worker. I've just seen it. I've worked with people who've had chronic, back and neck pain, and they don't anymore. Or if they do, it's episodic, it's brief, and it's over, So there really is always something that you can do.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much for sharing your brilliance with us. I know we're here on Instagram, so if you want to hang out with Sarah, she is here on Instagram at Sarah Court DPT, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And where else can people come find you on the internet?
My website is also sarahcourtdpt.com, and that sort of talks about, because I do a bunch of things. I'll teach group classes sometimes. I do a lot of teacher training. And it also has information about, like, if you wanted to work with me in person. I'm in Los Angeles, so if you're in the Los Angeles area, if you wanted to work with me in person, you can find me that way.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thank you again.
Thank you
for joining us this episode. If you're watching this live, this will also be on the Body Nerd Show podcast, so you can listen to it there as well. And I feel like we've only scratched the surface, so I feel like we might have to do this again. What do you want to see more of? Comment below and let me know. Also, make sure you give this video a thumbs up so that more people can find it, and definitely make sure that you hit that subscribe button so that you'll get notified every time I put out a new video.